What's up, guys? That Really Gross Guy here. We are back, and today we are going to be taking a look at the Nyx Rework. And you guys might be like, hey, didn't Nyx kind of get a rework like a couple weeks ago? She did. However, there's definitely a debate around Nyx and whether or not this rework needs a little bit extra. It is pretty much just a straight-up buff to her. However, I feel like it still isn't quite enough to put Nyx on the level of some of the other Warframes. She still definitely does struggle in some of the higher level content on her own. I am going to throw out there that I am, because I have played Nyx quite a bit, and I do actually really like Nyx. Definitely you get a good party together and you run Nyx for specifically what she is designed for, and she's pretty good. The only problem, like I said, is she definitely kind of struggles standalone for her abilities and her survivability especially. I am in Mott right now, so I'm going to be seeing enemies level 40 and above, and without I don't want to say a decent build, because even a decent build on Nyx really doesn't allow her to survive all that well, including having really good like ability strength and duration, all that stuff, because you kind of have to knock out some of those survivability mods or those other good mods that you really want on Nyx to make sure she doesn't die. One of those includes Assimilate, because Assimilate is really one of her only surefire ways to be a competitive option in terms of like a survivability, a really powerful solo frame, or to compare to other frames. Let's just put it that way. Without Assimilate, she struggles to really make her mark on her own, and you can see that she drops like a fly when she is not in when she's getting targeted, basically. So Chaos is kind of her go-to ability that everybody basically needs to keep going pretty much at all times on their Nyx. Unless they run, like I said, a really good Assimilate build. But we are going to get into her powers, we're going to get into some of the flaws in her powers, and what changes should be made in addition to maybe her current rework. And hopefully she can become a really significant powerhouse in the future with some additional changes. So, anyways, Chaos, like I said, pretty much has not changed whatsoever. You throw Chaos out there, you're going to get enemies confused to the point where they just start attacking nearby targets, which includes their allies. So Chaos is a great ability. Does it need to be changed? No, not really. Would it be cool if we saw a little bit of an extra buff to her Chaos? Yeah, probably. I think so. But Chaos, pretty much keep Chaos up at all times unless you're running your Assimilate build. Secondly, we're going to jump into her Mind Control, her first ability, which is going to basically mind control a target, and then with the new rework additions, you're going to be able to pump additional damage to that enemy and increase their damage output. So I will show you guys here in a second. I'm really kind of hoping to find ourselves a heavy gunner or a bombard or something like that to really take advantage of their strengths and put mind control in with it to make a significant mind control target. I will kind of point out that mind control, still on its own, is not the best thing in the world because the enemy AI is so poor when it comes to, mind controlling a target. Let me see if I can find ourselves like a heavy gunner or something. But one of the problems with the enemy AI is the enemies are pretty dumb. They do like to jump in cover and sometimes never walk away from that cover. I turned on the turrets. The turrets shredded Nyx because, it was just because of that survivability like I was talking about. Let's throw out the chaos out there. There we go. Heavy gunner. So we're going to mind control this heavy gunner. And while doing so, I'm going to actually try and shoot this heavy gunner as much as I can over the next 4 seconds, because that is the only duration you're going to get to amplify that heavy gunner's damage output. Unfortunately, that damage conversion, they call it, is not increased by duration mods. So you only have 4 seconds, no matter what your duration is on your Nyx, to increase the damage output on that heavy gunner. And I am already getting shredded by another turret. Wonderful. Survivability. Nyx. Anyways. So yeah, like I was saying, you have 4 seconds. Throw on as much damage as you can to that heavy gunner. I currently got it up to about 200% with my pretty low level or non-formad Breton. What the hell just killed me? Probably a bombard. Survivability, once again. So, the best way to utilize mind control is having a really incredible weapon to pump damage into that enemy, such as like a nice Rubico Prime with insane damage, maybe sniper rifle, maybe a really fast-firing weapon like a Soma Prime or something to stack that damage up the best you can and create a significant mind control target to kind of cause problems for the enemies. Like I said, the only problem I have with mind control as it stands is not necessarily the mind control, but the really dumb AI that we find in Warframe. So, I guess lastly we'll get on to the ultimate, her Assimilate. And I'm going with Assimilate mostly because I forget the name of her last ability, default-wise, because Assimilate is almost necessary on Nyx, especially if you're playing solo. So, her ultimate. The problem with her ultimate, which I will show you guys an example of, wow, that just got me killed. I'll show you an example of, is the fact that Assimilate, especially, well, her ultimate, especially without Assimilate on, enemies do a very good job of coming up and surrounding you and totally putting you at a disadvantage. If you don't move, gives the enemy time to surround you and pump you full of damage. The only way of getting around this is to stack up as much damage as physically possible and completely wipe out every enemy in the area. If you cannot do that, just like you just saw, the enemy will absolutely destroy you. It's just not good enough. The damage output on her ultimate is not good enough unless you stack a bunch of power strength into your Nyx. The problem is, by doing so, you're going to lose out on duration and, efficiency and all that other good stuff. So that's the problem I have found with her ultimate. Like I said, the way to get around this is to unfortunately use one of your mod slots and some of your mod capacity to put the Assimilate augment onto your Nyx. Now, because of that, you're going to miss out once again on some of her other strengths. So her duration, all that other good stuff that we just talked about, her efficiency, you're going to miss out on because you have used that mod capacity for her Assimilate. Now, if you can pump out tons and tons of damage, so you can see there, getting surrounded in her Assimilate is just asking to get killed. That ultimate is it needs power strength. It's just not good enough. One way that people are trying to get around this is, or the devs want to increase as she takes damage, whether it be from enemies or allies. I'm not too sure if they're going to do it for enemies as well. It's also going to increase that range. So now if you can basically nuke a larger area using all of that damage you stacked up. I think that's a good start, because as you saw there, fighting level 40 enemies and above, is using her ultimate is just asking to get destroyed. The only way I have to really get around this, and forgive my build, this was a build to basically just show Nyx at her regular power strength, we'll just say. I have an all-around build just to show you what all of her abilities do. Running something like an assimilate build, you can see here, which really focuses on efficiency and range, and duration isn't that important. That is, you really have to take advantage of that efficiency so that you can basically just spend the entire game in assimilate. It's the only way her ultimate, in my opinion, is useful, which is unfortunate because she's really slow in assimilate, and I feel like the ability shouldn't be useless without an augment. So that's how I put it. And then lastly, duration. If you make her duration based, the problem with that is you now sacrifice other stuff. You either sacrifice an augment, or you sacrifice all her other efficiency, range, strength, whatever, by focusing on duration. And overall, it just nerfs Nyx. Does that make any sense? The fact that you need an augment, or the fact that you need to focus on survivability, completely nerfs everything else that is good about Nyx. So, unfortunately, she either needs some changes to her abilities still, or she needs just a straight up buff to some of her survivability in some way, shape, or form. Whether that is just increasing the default duration of some of her abilities, or the default power strength of some of her abilities, or just increasing her armor and her health and her shields. I'm not too sure. I'm kind of I'm on the fence about how I feel about Nyx, because I've always enjoyed her, but I always knew that I couldn't really take her into really high level missions. If I ever take her into something like a sortie or an arbitration, I'm running an assimilate build, and I'm staying in assimilate the whole time, which I don't think is the proper way for a Warframe to be. I'm going to leave it there. I'm curious to see what you guys think about that. What changes do you think could happen to Nyx to make her better? And I would love to hear them in the comments. And I know that DE is listening, because they do know that she needs more. And maybe we can brainstorm, and some changes can be made. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope to see you guys again in the next video. Blah!